is one of the most storied rivalries in all of college sports. Duke-UNC, this their 260th meeting. I like a nice round number. These two teams matched up earlier this season, and Duke snapped a home game losing skid to North Carolina. Now they're in Chapel Hill. Duke visiting the Dean Center for a regular season finale. That game at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN. A lot of lemon Oreos out there. Welcome to Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. Sam Ravech, Christine Williamson. Have you tried them?
No, not a big fan of lemon Oreos.
Really?
No. I don't think I would be. I've never tried them.
If you haven't tried them, how do you know? You don't know unless
I'm not a big
them.
lemon dessert guy, so.
Oh, okay.
That would probably ruin it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I would like them, just FYI. I haven't tried them either, but they're probably a little delicious. Okay, so big basketball day today, last day of the regular season. What are you looking forward to overall the most?
There's so many different scenarios that can play out. Certainly seeding for conference tournaments that can come into effect here. But just to kind of put into context how crazy this year has been, this is our final regular season show here on Countdown to Game Day. And in the preseason, we talked about UNC, right? Ranked number 1.
Yeah.
11 teams in the AP preseason poll are no longer in the top 25. 6 of those 11 teams are on the bubble right now.
Right.
5 of those 11 teams are not even in the conversation.
Right.
So it's just been kind of an insane year.
I mean, we talked a lot about how UNC was number 1 in the preseason poll, and they haven't been that great. But let's look at the matchups that we're looking forward to in the slate of games that we have in college basketball. Obviously, we have some good ones. Iowa State at Baylor, Tennessee at Auburn, et cetera, et cetera. What are you looking forward to?
Hard to look past the Duke-North Carolina game. Of course, everyone's going to be watching that top 10 matchup there. Texas, Kansas as well. Texas falling off a little bit. Kansas has already sealed up the regular season title there in the Big 12.
Okay, so let's talk about some things that we're looking forward to in general with What's the Buzz?
I love this bee.
Look at how freaking cute this little
bee is great.
I'm kind of obsessed. Don't love that buzzing noise, but that was really cute. Okay, so let's talk Houston and Alabama because they remain in the top spots in the AP poll, and they're the same. Houston at number 1, UCLA and Purdue rounded out the top 5, and we've kind of talked about how the teams at the top haven't really changed that much, though they've interchanged with one another. So, like, what are you looking at when you look at these top 5 teams?
So, well, with Houston, we'll just kind of start there. They've won 10 straight. They had a little bit of a nail-biter in the first half against Wichita State earlier this week. A really interesting game Sunday for Houston. They will play Memphis, and Memphis just got Kendrick Davis back, who was the AAC Player of the Year last year with SMU, transferred to Memphis. He's been out, so they will have him back on Sunday. That'll be interesting. But, yeah, Houston's been dominant. And I think with Alabama, too, they also had a really close one against Auburn earlier this week, right? And Auburn led, I think, by 17 with under 11 to play, and Alabama was able to cut down the nets after a close overtime win there. Second outright SEC title, by the way, for Crimson Tide in the last 3 seasons. But they haven't really looked like the team that was seemingly invincible, I think, for the first, whatever it was, 10, 11 games of SEC play. So while the top 5 hasn't changed, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see who gets that final number 1 spot. Is it Purdue or is it UCLA? You can make a great case for both of them. I think whoever makes a deeper run, probably in their conference tournament, is going to get that number 1 spot. I
also want to give a shout out to Marquette, who's at number 6. Shaka Smart, one of my favorite college basketball coaches, and we'll talk a little bit more about Marquette later in the show because, you know, I have them doing something that we'll talk about later in the show. But I love Shaka Smart. I think he's amazing, and I love that Marquette has been able to do what they have this season because he really figured things out there.
Yeah, preseason number 9, right in the Big East, and one of the tougher conferences, I think, in the country this year in the Big East. And Shaka Smart's done a great job. Think about where he came from, too, Texas.
Exactly.
Top 10 team.
Did not really work out in Texas for him at all. So, like, loving the fact that he's absolutely thriving at Marquette, which, again, we'll talk about later. Okay, let's talk about a little buzz beaters because that's the whole reason I feel like this is called What's the Buzz? And that's Desmond Cambridge. Absolute dagger. Now, they're down by a point with less than 3 seconds left on the clock to Arizona.
Oh.
How?
This is the best buzzer beater I think that we saw all season on the men's side. Not just this shot, Christine, but also the game in which it's played. This is an in-state rival, going to go down in history. And by the way, Arizona State lost to UCLA on Thursday night, but this is a team that is going to be in bubble conversations, I think, leading up to Selection Sunday. Here's how tight the Pac-12 is, by the way. with a win here today, Arizona State could finish as high as 4th in the Pac-12 standings, or a loss could put them as low as 7th. So that's just
wild.
how tight the Pac-12 has been.
Cambridge was also, by the way, named Pac-12 Player of the Week after that shot.
Deservingly so, yeah.
Not surprising at all. Let's go to the ACC because Jon Scheyer, Duke head coach Jon Scheyer, first head coach in the ACC to go undefeated in his debut season. Are you at all surprised that he's been able to do what he has done at Duke?
Absolutely. I think he deserves a ton of credit, and Duke is going to be a team that I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the show for a couple of reasons. But yeah, I mean, you look at it's never easy, first off, taking over for a legend, taking over for someone who was your mentor, your coach, pretty much your entire adult life, right? You talk about the pressure that he had to deal with this season, 22 wins on the year, going into tonight's game against North Carolina. One of the many reasons, Christine, that I think he deserves so much credit, Duke was 5-4 at the end of January in the ACC. Injuries left and right. You talk about even before this season started, they didn't really have two of their most talented freshmen. You had Derek Lively, who was out with an injury. Derek Whitehead was out as well. And then later on in the year, you saw what Jeremy Roach had with a little bit of that nagging toe injury. Still able to keep everything above board. And it's just been impressive to see what they've done. Look, they have no bad losses. No losses outside of quad 1, quad 2. I think they're under the radar a little bit right now.
The fact that you are the coach to follow up after Mike Krzyzewski, and you go into that program, imagine how much pressure was on him. Duke now has 18 undefeated seasons at home since the ACC was formed, which, by the way, was a very long time ago. It was in 1953, 1954. The most in the league, and 11 of those came under Coach K. So the fact that he was able to do this in his first season is absolutely wild. We love that for him.
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's talk about another buzzer beater. How about it? This one, Peyton Sanford, and there was 94 seconds left on the clock. Iowa trailing 91-78 to Michigan State. So 10 seconds left. MSU, AJ's Hoggard misses his first free throw in 12 attempts. Then the Spartans led by just one possession with the score sitting at 101-98. Ball's live. Iowa brings the ball up quickly. A little double dribble handoff, and Sanford knocks down a wide open look with 3 seconds left to send the game into overtime. We love a little extra basketball. I mean, how does this happen?
I don't know how it happens. I do know that this game was just kind of crazy start to finish. And we also had one of the best stare downs ever in college basketball with Iowa's head coach, Fran McCaffrey. I think I'm going to lead the charge on this, Christine. I think we need more stare downs. It eliminates like the need to just scream at each other. Just go up, little stare down, right? And everyone gets the message.
Right.
No need for technical fouls.
I was gonna say, and then you don't get the tech either. Right. Because it's just, I'm just looking. I'm just looking. There's nothing going on right now. So yeah, it's
the stare downs are the future of college basketball.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, this is not fun for Tennessee, and actually I'm going to talk about Tennessee later in the show, and I'm going to mention this. Yes, of course. Zakai Zeigler is out for the season. He has an ACL injury and will no longer play. He tore his ACL in the game against Arkansas on Tuesday and will miss the remainder of the season. And the thing that I'm going to talk about later is the fact that I feel like Tennessee can win the SEC tournament. However, without this guy, it's going to be really hard.
Right. And here's a couple reasons why they're going to at least struggle, I think, in the interim until they can figure a couple things out. Zakai Zeigler was the only true point guard on this team. So you're going to have other people needing to carry the ball. Santiago Vescovi is going to be asked to handle a lot of the ball more. He's really great off the ball, but we've seen him play on. But Zakai Zeigler was more than just the point guard for this team. I mean, he is the leader. He's the catalyst for this team offensively and defensively. He's a National Defensive Player of the Year award candidate this year. So this was a terrible loss. I was watching it live, and it's just one of those, you see it, and it's just like, your heart just sinks because you know how important he is to this team. And all of the hopes that they've had. Tennessee's had some really bad luck the last couple of years with injuries late in the seasons as well.
They close out the season today against Auburn. Let's get some women's hoops in here, obviously, because we need a little bit of representation. Caitlyn Clark, we already know she's a bucket. We know that her range extends outside of the basketball arena, and therefore she gets buzzer beaters on a regular basis. Caitlyn Clark hits a three-pointer at the buzzer beater to top Indiana. Now, of course, Indiana was number 2 at the time. Buckets. I mean, that put an exclamation point on their season.
Here's my question, Christine. Like, why are we surprised at this point?
Right.
Caitlyn Clark is just doing this on a daily basis. It's another day at the office for Caitlyn Clark, who's on her way to another National Player of the Year award, by the way. It's just silly. She is the definition of a walking bucket. You look up walking bucket in the dictionary, and Caitlyn Clark's name's right there.
Wow, I haven't looked that up, but
I'm
glad that you just told
After
me
the show, we'll look it up.
By the way, myself, Sam Ravech, and Tarika Foster-Brasby will be on our countdown to women's basketball show tomorrow, so come hang out with us then. Okay, it is now time for Wooden Watch, presented by Wendy's. We're going to take a look at a couple of players who are currently on that mid-season watch list. And first up, we got a guy that we've been talking about for a very long time, Oscar Tshiebwe, 6'9" senior, has been a force for the Wildcats. He leads the team in points with 16.5 per game. He also leads the SEC in rebounds with 13.1 per game. Big man from the Congo helped Kentucky finish third in the SEC in the regular season and is a big reason they're looking to make a run in the conference tournament.
Yeah, no coincidence that when Oscar Tshiebwe started playing like the Player of the Year candidate he was last year, Kentucky's season started to turn around.
Right.
20 points per game, over 12 rebounds per game over the last 6. The Wildcats have won 4 straight before that Vanderbilt loss, which was a strange loss earlier this week.
All right, let's go to Kyle Filipowski, the 7-foot freshman who's made an instant impact for Duke. He leads the Blue Devils in points, rebounds, and steals and helped Duke go undefeated at home for the first time, as we already mentioned, since the 2013-14 season.
Leads all freshmen nationally, 13 double-doubles. We just talked about the reigning National Player of the Year. He's got 16 double-doubles. Filipowski's got 13, 8 ACC Rookie of the Week awards. Like you said, he's just been on fire. He's a guy that can step out and hit the three as well. Turnovers have been a bit of a problem with Kyle Filipowski, but again, the guy's a freshman, so that's expected. One
of the reasons, of course, as I already mentioned, that Duke is doing what they are doing this season. Those are your players for this week's Wooden Watch, presented by Wendy's.
You talk about a rivalry, the premier rivalry in all of college basketball.
You want it, you gotta get it. Go out and take it and win it.
I was a player here. It's really special.
Duke Carolina, it always delivers.
This is basketball. This is life.
The Carolina team that's just desperate to keep winning and keep hope alive.
I tell them, yeah, I'm alive every single time.
You can get second chance opportunities. Let's get back to work. Energy, effort, passion, enthusiasm, hunger, and thirst.
All you have to do is say Duke Carolina and everybody understands it.
There's a lot of expectations and pressure.
They've got to take care of business, and they have to win here against Duke.
Working hard every day till I get what's mine. Yeah.
We are now joined by a UNC senior and journalism student, Olivia Mundorf, who is in Chapel Hill. She's getting ready for game day, all the fans behind her. I've heard people yelling, as you can hear people yelling right now. Olivia, what is the atmosphere like out there?
We are so excited, Christine. We're here at game day. The fans have been out here all morning. The first fan got here at 5 a.m. this morning just to get into game day. We're super excited. Then we're going to come back outside. We have a super strict lottery process here. So we'll be at the Dean Dome all day in anticipation for a big matchup tonight.
Okay, so I love your shirt. I was telling you a little bit offline because you have picked the perfect shade of blue. Obviously, I mean, as you have like a little bit of a different shirt, it's not necessarily a school shirt. How do you get ready for game day?
I know, I don't really have to try too hard. This is my entire wardrobe is Carolina blue. And a lot of schools have the royal blue, that's pretty basic, but no one else has Carolina blue like we do here. It's in the name. So we're super excited. Everyone came today dressed in their Carolina blue, the better shade of blue around here.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so obviously this is the 11th time that game day has been in Chapel Hill. What does this week differ, or how does this week differ than the other 11 times that they've been there?
I think this time it's a little different. This is a big matchup. It's a must-win game for UNC tonight. They need to keep the tournament dreams alive, and there's a lot of tradition between this rivalry. They're only coming from 8 miles down the road, so super close. An ACC opponent, of course, but they're right here, and we just can't wait to get them in the building tonight. At home in the Dean Dome, there's no better place. So much tradition between these two teams. Legendary coaches, legendary players, and a lot of national champions in between. But tonight really matters for UNC to keep the March Madness dream alive.
For sure, and also it really matters because the last time these two teams matched up, UNC did take the L. So what do you think the Tar Heels are going to have to do tonight to get the win?
I think tonight it starts with Armando Bacot in the paint. He needs to establish himself in the inside early and getting the ball into Armando as often as possible. It frees up Caleb and RJ on the perimeter. They're going to need to knock down some shots, and I think the difference tonight is Pete Nance. He didn't play that well in Durham last month, but he has had 2 impressive games, impressive offensive performances. He's been shooting the ball better, and I think he can be a real difference maker tonight. If the Heels play together, I think they can take it home tonight.
Perfect. Well, we'll see what happens. That game, obviously, at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN. And as I mentioned, you're out there. You have fans. I see people with wigs on. They look pretty lit. Can you grab the most excited fan out there and play a game of this or that?
Yes, I actually have him here with me right now. We're going to bring in one of the most decorated fans we found today. This is Josh, and we're going to play a little game of this and that. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, first question. Would you rather go to dinner with Michael Jordan or Mia Hamm?
Probably Michael Jordan, because he's arguably the greatest sports athlete ever.
I have to agree. All right, next question. Would you rather lose in the national championship on a buzzer beater or not make the tournament at all?
Probably lose on a buzzer beater because it's already happened. I can probably deal with it twice.
Okay. All right, next question. The game is on the line. The clock is expiring. Shot clock's off. Who's taking the last shot tonight? Armando Bacot or Pete Nance?
Normally, I'd say Armando, but the way Pete's been playing recently with his lemon Oreos, I'd say give me Pete.
I'm with him. It's the lemon Oreos. Okay, next question. This is a tough one. Would you rather marry a Duke fan or a State fan?
This is going to be controversial, but I'm going to go with the Duke fan so I can break her heart.
Ooh, okay. Last question. Who's going to win tonight, UNC or Duke?
Heels by 90.
Yeah! Yes, you heard it here first. We're so excited. We're going to get ready to go inside for game day. Christine, we'll send it back to you.
I'm a little confused. You're good. I know he can't hear me, but did he just say he's going to get a divorce to a Duke fan? Would you rather divorce a Duke fan or a State fan? I love that. But thank you so much, Olivia. It's now time for What If, covered by State Farm. And for this one, usually we change the past. This one, we're going to change the course of the future, possibly.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to call an audible and say, what if the team that is the 10th ranked team in the Big 12 just happens to win the Big 12 championship, the Big 12 tournament? Right. What does that mean? Would they have to get all 10 Big 12 teams into the NCAA tournament?
So that's what we're trying to suss out here, right? Like, is there a way for all 10 Big 12 teams to make it into the NCAA tournament? The answer is kind of, but not really. There's a path there, yes, but it's highly unlikely. And the reason being, you need both of those teams in Oklahoma to really step it up. Oklahoma State has lost 5 in a row, and they've kind of fallen off the tracks a little bit. And Oklahoma, even with a win today against TCU, would have 5 wins in the Big 12, which is not going to be good enough for an at-large bid. Having said that, if the same Oklahoma team that beat Alabama by 24 earlier this year in January shows up in Kansas City, we could be talking about a whole different story, right? So the great part about this what if is if you were to solely look at the net right now, Oklahoma ranks 68th, and they're the lowest.
Yeah.
So if the committee were to put teams in solely based on the net, you would have to put all 10 teams in. But we, of course, know that's not how they work. But it's just fun to think about, right?
It's been a minute since they've actually won the Big 12 championship. It's 2001, 2002, and 2003 were the last time that they won the championship, and then they were the Big 12 regular season champs in 2005. We know for a fact that they're obviously not going to win the Big 12. They're 10th. They're the only, Kansas and Oklahoma are the only teams that we know for sure. Kansas is number 1 and Oklahoma is number 10. So
that's what we know.
They actually end up playing in the first round of the Big 12 championship. But it'll be interesting. And I mean, I feel like you said, there is a chance. There's a small chance. So we'll see what actually happens. We know that there's some really good games today. Let's take a look at the ones that we're looking at. I already know which one I have my eyes on. I mean, obviously, everyone wants to look at this Arizona-UCLA matchup, but I'm trying to see that Pitt-Miami game.
Yeah, that's an important one there. I mean, if you were to, and I know you got mad at me for this, if we were to tell you at the start of the season Pitt-Miami would be at the top of the ACC deciding who wins the conference, you would call me crazy. And, of course, the late night game is going to be terrific. Top 10 matchup out west.
Yeah, so since we're talking about Miami, we figured before our last segment that we should give a little shout out to our alma maters. I'll let you go first since we were just talking about Miami a couple seconds ago. So what do you got?
I don't know if this is a shout out per se, because Pepperdine has not played well this year. They have not played well the last couple of years. The Waves are 9-22 overall this year. By the way, their season's done. They lost in the first round of the West Coast Conference Tournament to Pacific. They finished 2-14 in the West Coast Conference. They haven't won a true road game in 2 seasons. Yes, that graphic is correct. Also, the letters below it are probably also correct. My chances at a commencement speaker are now gone. But Pepperdine, what makes this more difficult to kind of swallow is Pepperdine has a first-round draft pick on their team. Maxwell Lewis was projected. I've seen him as high as a lottery pick, and they still only won 2 games in the West Coast Conference. So as an alum, consider me disappointed, Pepperdine.
You could have spun that positive in some way.
How?
I don't know how, but you could have done it, and then you could have been a commencement speaker in the future, and then it would have been a shout-out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will give a shout-out to the Miami Hurricanes. You want to know why?
Why?
Because it's great to be a Miami Hurricane. As you mentioned, and as we've talked about on this show previously, Miami in control of their own destiny, now at the top of the ACC standings. They play Pittsburgh today, as we just mentioned. Pitt, Miami, and Virginia all have the same exact record. They're 14-5 in the ACC. So we'll see if they're able to take down Pittsburgh today. The last time that Miami won the ACC championship, actually, never mind, I'm not going to use that stat right now. I'm going to use that later in the show. But, it's been a minute, and I was actually at Miami when it happened. I was covering the Hurricanes as an intern in the communications department. So it was a great year, and this is another great season for the Canes.
So you guys had a great year. We had a terrible year, basically, is what you're saying.
I told you to spin it positive. There was a chance for you to do that.
Not possible.
Okay,
not possible.
I mean, we keep alluding to the fact that we're going to do something later in the show. I don't know why I've done that all show today, because we just keep talking about certain subjects. Yeah. But we're going to make some conference championship pick'ems and just decide who we think is going to win conference tournaments, starting with the ACC championship. And I feel like you know where I'm going to go on this one. Sam, you go first.
I did tease this earlier in the show. I'm going with Duke. It's been an up and down year. We talked about the injuries right now. Duke is a little bit more healthy. They've won 5 straight heading into the game today. I honestly feel like, and Christine, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. It feels like Duke and UNC are sometimes always paired for, a bad reason. Like if one team is not playing well and the other one's kind of like mediocre but has started to play better, we only kind of consider them as like a duo, right? And we talk about them as one. Duke has played a lot better than North Carolina this year, and I feel like because UNC has had a down year, that Duke gets dragged down a little bit on that.
I think ultimately, when we've talked about Blue Bloods over the last 3 or 4 seasons, we've talked about how all Blue Bloods have had a down year. And I think because, as you mentioned, you think about Kentucky, you think about Duke, you think about UNC, but these 2 teams obviously rivals, so we do think of them as a pair. And when Duke had a down year, UNC had a down year, and we thought, okay, that's going to carry over into this season, and that didn't really do that. So I feel like that's probably why we paired them all together. But you're totally right. We haven't talked about Duke as much as we usually do. We've talked about UNC way more because we can say UNC has been awful, and then we're like, wait, but Duke is playing really well, and then we're like, don't talk about that. UNC is really bad. So it is kind of weird. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm obviously going to talk about University of Miami in this. I do feel like they can win the ACC championship, and this is what I was going to say earlier. The last time that they won the regular season, 2012, 2013, when I was there, they also won the ACC championship. So the fact that Miami has a chance to win the ACC championship today, if they in fact do beat Pittsburgh and do win the regular season, I do believe that Miami has a chance to also win the tournament, because just that's how history works. I mean, it makes sense, right?
I like it.
And Jim Larinaga obviously is absolutely goated. He's my favorite coach in the whole entire world. So I feel like he's obviously brought this team to this point before, and I feel like he can do it again.
Beloved. And he said that this is one of the more talented teams that he's had, at least one of the teams that he can trust the most, which is important.
Huge. That's huge. All right, let's go to the Big Ten. Who do you have winning that?
So I'm going another under the radar pick here, and I'm going with Northwestern for a couple of different reasons. I love what Chris Collins has done this year. Northwestern's going back to the NCAA Tournament for the first time since 2017. It is going to be just their second program trip to the big dance. I think that Northwestern has one of the most underrated backcourts in the entire country. Chase Audige, Boo Buie, and it's just been impressive to watch. You saw what they did, the sweep over Indiana this year, and they also beat Purdue. So anything is possible. If you can beat those two teams, look, anything can happen in the tournament.
Okay, so I'm going to go with a team that I believe is going to beat them, Maryland. They beat Purdue. They beat Indiana.
Yep.
Northwestern. They've won all of their conference home games, which I feel like is huge for them, and this is Kevin Willard's first season as a head coach. Here's my thing. The postseason often doesn't look the same as the regular season, right? So I feel like anybody can win a tournament. It's single elimination, and I feel like Maryland is poised to have a nice run, not only in the postseason when it comes to their Big Ten championship, but also in the postseason in the NCAA tournament. So I feel like they're gonna win. Okay, next we have the best conference basketball tournament, or what conference? Basketball conference.
Yeah.
And tournament, I guess. The Big 12.
Could be both.
Who
Yeah.
do you have winning that?
I have Bill Self. That's why Kansas. It's been silly what Bill Self has been able to do at Kansas. This is his 20th year now, and he's won 17, at least a share of the regular season title. 17 of the 20 years. I think this is one of the tougher conferences to pick, obviously, because of how tough it's been. But it's hard to bet against Kansas. Right.
And the top team's going to buy, too, so that's very beneficial for them. I will say Baylor, for the exact opposite reason that you just did. Baylor has never won a conference tournament. Ever.
Yeah.
So, they need to do it. They were the regular season champs the last two seasons, not this season. They won a share with Kansas, and then they won it outright the year before. I feel like it's about time for Scott Drew to get his Big 12 championship. So let's see if they're able to get it this year. And like I said, anything can happen in the postseason. Anything can happen in the tournament. So I'm expecting them to eventually get a dub in the actual championship. All right, who do you have for the Pac-12?
I have UCLA. I have too many question marks about Arizona. Mick Cronin is one of my favorite coaches to watch on the sidelines because he can go crazy at times, which is always fun to watch. But I think Jaime Jaquez Jr. certainly should be in the Player of the Year conversation. Caitlyn Clark, one of the best defensive players in the country. I think he ranks 4th in Division I basketball in steals. So this is a team that maybe doesn't do a single thing great, but they do a lot of things really, really well.
I love Jaime Jaquez. He's one of my favorite players in college basketball. I feel like we haven't talked about him that much this season. I will say Arizona. I feel like UCLA is going to beat Arizona today because Arizona is the dog. They haven't won that many games in which they were the dog. However, can UCLA just win out the rest of the season? No. So I'm taking Arizona.
All right.
Just because of the odds.
Fair enough.
Okay, SEC championship.
I'm picking Alabama. We talked about just the advantage that you get with a double bye.
Yeah.
And Alabama's going to get that. I feel so bad for Tennessee and Zakai Zeigler, but I know that you're going to be talking about them in just a second. But can anybody keep up with Alabama offensively? I do think that there's been certainly some question marks over the last couple of games. The last 3 games have been really tight. But look, they're scoring over 80 points per game. I'm not sure anyone can keep up with that.
Listen, Alabama's going to win the SEC championship, even though I said Tennessee. And Tennessee has had too many injury issues. They're really hobbly right now, as we mentioned, Zakai Zeigler.
Yeah.
The fact that he's not playing, they've had a lot of people in and out of that team. And obviously, I feel like if they were all healthy, this team would definitely win the SEC championship. I just wanted to say them because I felt like if they do, in fact, win, then I would look like a savant.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I'll go with Tennessee. Okay, who do you have for the Big East?
Born and raised UConn fan, born and raised in Connecticut, but I do think that this is a subjective pick. The way that UConn started this season, Christine, 14-0, with wins over Iowa State and Alabama at the PK 80 tournament out west. When you look at the ceiling for UConn, I think, this is a trendy pick. It is just off the charts. I think UConn has the potential to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament this year. And when you look at it as well, since the 2013-2014 season, UConn is 10-6 at Madison Square Garden. I know that's not a great record, but it is a pretty substantial winning record.
Yeah.
And that's where they're going to be playing the Big East tournament.
Okay, I'm going with Marquette. And the reason is because of Shaka Smart. As I mentioned, he's one of my favorite coaches in college basketball. He grew out his hair and then just absolutely took over Marquette. The fact that this is Marquette's first ever conference championship in the Big East, ever. Okay, so I feel like this team has a lot of momentum going into the postseason. I feel like they're going to be able to go into the postseason, win the Big East championship, and then make a nice run in the NCAA tournament. So I'm going with the Fighting Shaka Smarts.
That's going to be a wild tournament in New York City, by the way.
Okay, quickly, who do you have, Duke or UNC?
I'm taking Duke. They've won 5 straight, and I like the way they're playing.
I mean, if UNC wins this game, I'd be shocked. So I'm going Duke.
Okay, fair enough.
There's no possible way. Also, just FYI, I want everybody to know I went Duke with the last one, and Sam went UNC.
I did. Fair enough.
So I'm always right. Thanks, guys, for watching Countdown to College Game Day, covered by State Farm. Enjoy all of the college basketball games today. We will see you in the postseason.